I'll do it, but I don't want it to be a gun for hire thing, So I want part ownership of this. So, and I was kind of running my hands through the dirt, and I told her, you may have saddled yourself up with a lame duck. There has been no better and more influential advice than learn to love the minutia. We're going to do an exorcism on Brother Ramsey's.
That was the baddest thing I ever saw in my life. Are we laughing? Are we crying? What are we doing?
If you're doing something different than the animated series, you're doing Batman. If I were to do a comic, I'd do it like this.
Welcome to another episode of Icon Presents. Joining me today is an amazing comic book artist and the co-founder of the new comic book titled The Mighty Golden Patriot. Ladies and gentlemen, Icon Presents John Dillard.
The year is 1945. World War II rages from the halls of Buckingham Palace to the shores of the Nile River. Even now, the clash between freedom and tyranny is about to boil over. Somewhere in North Africa, two American flyboys are soaring high on a reconnaissance mission, searching for clues to a peculiar new obsession with the occult gripping the Nazi high command.
Welcome, John Dillard. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here.
Hey, man, thanks for joining me. We were going to do this remotely. I appreciate you making the trek down here, man. I know that ride was pretty rough.
It was rough. I got a couple of pictures of the guy that caused the traffic accident.
Oh, yeah?
It slowed me down.
Oh, man, that's too bad. But we have you here today, so I'm looking forward to kind of going into the details or getting some background information about yourself, as well as your new project that you partnered up with Yellow Flash on, which is titled The Mighty Golden Patriot. Now I got to say, I'm looking forward to that. I'm excited about that. I already got my copy booked up there, so I'm ready for it when that drops. But just for the people, let's get a little bit of background information on the man, the myth, the legend, John Dillard.
Sure. Again, I'm one of those guys that been drawing since I was little.
Okay.
But I come from a kind of atmosphere of you don't make money doing artwork. So find something else to do and do your on the side. I'm like, okay, that's fine. So, and that's kind of how it always was. And I had always been very good but never did any kind of formal anything at all. And then it wasn't until maybe I was in middle school where I started to get some idea of things that you could do with artwork.
Okay.
And I started kind of going into an apprenticeship to do tattoos and stuff like that. And doing caricatures. As I became an adult, I would do caricatures at an amusement park near my home. And then just kind of left it alone for a while. Started doing warehouse work, became a supervisor, that sort of thing. Until basically I wrecked my back.
Oh.
And after I wrecked my back, I had to kind of really sit and think about what I was going to be doing moving forward. And at that time, I was dating my now current wife.
Okay.
And she said, well, what do you think? And I really had to come to Jesus moment where I remember it distinctly. I was in her parents' backyard. And I had just built some raised bedding for garden thing. Yeah. And I was kind of running my hands through the dirt. And I told her, you may have saddled yourself up with a lame duck. You might want to move on, because I myself, I could not see a way forward.
I got you.
Everything kind of came down and she was having none of it.
Yeah, I got you. Good.
And she's a fantastic woman. But we thought about it for a while, and I had to kind of just, take a leap of faith, drink the Kool-Aid, and started doing something. I went to truck driving school.
Okay.
And I became an over-the-road truck driver for years. And that was great. That was really good. I was able to do it without too much, because before I was taking pain meds just to work in the warehouse work, and I was sweating all day, and every day was just something I didn't look forward to at all.
Right.
And after that, it became good. It was good for a while. And it was during this time I had then, after a few years doing all that stuff, I met a guy, because I still did my art stuff on the side, and the work that I was working at, they wanted me to paint the windows for Christmas. Right? Okay. So I did that.
Yeah.
And it was great because I was able to do that and still get my hourly pay. But after I did that, one of the guards that checks people in and out, he was like, "Hey, do you ever do comic books?" And I was like, "No, I drive trucks." And he's like, "Well, think about it." He started kind of getting an earworm.
Yeah.
Because I would drive in and out of this place 4 times a night. Yeah. And every time he would come out and chit chat with me, because I think he saw me wearing a Batman t-shirt, which is what started that conversation.
Gotcha.
And after doing that for a while, I kind of said, okay, you know what? Let's give it a shot. I'll go to YouTube. I'll look up how to draw, how to make a comic book.
Yeah.
And I did. And there was a lot of tutorial videos. But then there was, after some auto scrolling, you leave a YouTube video on, it kind of goes to the next one. A video came on of some guy critiquing the current state of comics, which apparently I had no idea was not in good shape.
Okay.
This was around 2017, 2018. Okay. And there was a guy, Diversity in Comics YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And he was critiquing what was wrong with it. I was like, oh, this is really good. I started taking notes. Yeah. What not to do when you're making a comic. But the thing was, he was a live streamer. And I was like, I was, again, new to YouTube. Yeah. I didn't know that you could actually, there was a feature that you could chat to the person while they were streaming. And I started asking him questions like, well, what about panel this or this and that? And he was like, well, and he wasn't a creator, but he was really knowledgeable. Like this guy was like an untapped well of just information of comic history. And I started getting really good information and started I'm watching this guy on the regular. And that's when I was like, okay, this is really cool. And I started talking with other people in his chat. Okay. Oh yeah, because I was watching regularly and he would go live regularly, and I was able to make connections with people that I started talking with on Twitter and YouTube. I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And then he was talking about, if I were to do a comic, I'd do it like this. And I was like, because he started kind of spitballing ideas. Yeah. And I was like, that's kind of cool. Because I've always wanted to be a storyteller. Okay. One of my most fond memories, it was at a funeral. But, after a funeral, you kind of hang out at an aunt's house. We were at my aunt's house in East Los Angeles.
Inspiration strikes at the oddest times. It is what it is.
And we were at hanging out after the funeral. And we had a big, those big 50-gallon drum bonfires in the backyard. Yeah. Real crummy. But I was thinking to myself, everybody was telling scary stories. And now I remember when I was young, I saw a movie called The Great Outdoors. Okay. With John Candy and Dan Aykroyd. And there was a scene in the movie where John Candy tells the story of the bald-headed killer bear of Clare County. Okay. And he's telling his nephews and his kids and also his in-laws the story. And he's pacing around and he's being really animated with it, very methodical. And I was watching this movie. We had it on VHS. And I was like, just gobsmacked. This is a great story. And I remember thinking, let me try to tell a story, a spooky story. Like his, right? His was half true, So I was like, let me take something that I know. And I remember I used to be in this, when I was 18, I was in this Christian camp. But it was for alcoholics, right? Okay. So I was partying too much, and I was like, you know what? Okay. I got in a fight with my parents, and I was like, F you, and I'm like, I'm out of here. But then I got hurt. So, I had to go somewhere. Yeah. And I was like, these people I was like, okay, fine. So it was like a Christian camp for recovering adults, whatever. But they wouldn't take me at the Salvation Army because I wasn't 21 yet. Okay. So I was like, okay, we'll go to this place. And every day you had to do sermons. You had to research, and then you had to present it at lunchtime, and then you go do your work, and then you come back, and then you do afternoon studies. And so after about 6 months of that, they hit me up, and they're like, "Hey, Brother Dillard, can you help us?" I'm like, "What's going on?" He's like, "Oh, we're gonna do an exorcism on Brother Ramses." I'm like, "No," So, and then they're like, 20 minutes later, they come knocking at my door. They came knocking at my door, not because I knew anything, but because I had the most time in.
Okay.
I was like 6 months there. Everybody kind of comes and goes,
Got you.
They're like,
why were you there for so long then if everybody else was coming and going?
Well, you're supposed to sign and be there for a year.
Got you. Okay.
But they come knocking at my door and they're like, "Hey, help me." I go over there and he's having a seizure on the floor and he's bleeding out of his ear and his eye and his nose and his mouth.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's not a seizure. This guy's having some sort of a possession attack. I go and call the pastor, get him whatever. But so I tell that story, but I tell it kind of with, a half story with like the Insidious. Yeah. Have you seen the movie Insidious?
Yeah.
I do that number.
Okay. Gotcha.
And I'm telling all of my cousins and their kids and all that. And I thought I did pretty good. I tried to put on a good presentation.
Yeah.
I tried to make it good, a good, spoken aloud story. Then I get a call. I drive home. I get a call from my aunt.
Okay.
And she says, "I need you to talk to your cousins." Okay. Because I was a little bit older than my cousins. My cousins were 17, 19, and 20, I think. Those 17-year-old, the 19-year-old, and the 20-year-old were trying to sleep with their mom because of my story. And I was like, dude, I've never felt better.
That's great.
Like, that made me feel so good that the story impacted them that much and actually scared a grown-up. Yes. And I was like, oh, I love that. I would love to tell stories.
Oh, man, that's awesome.
So when I heard, on YouTube, this guy talking about the stories and telling stories, I was like, dude, I would love to tell stories. That's my jam. And I started thinking about it. Okay. So, and then I would actually shot off like drawings and post it to his Twitter or I think at the time his email. I would just email him things. Okay. And then he hit me back up and he was like, "Hey, would you be interested in working in a book I'm working on?" And I was like, "Oh, hell yeah." But then that fell through.
Okay.
One of his friends that he knew from a former pro named John Malin.
Okay. Yeah.
He got that guy to do his book instead.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, oh, damn it. But no, Malin's great. But he was better. And I was not ready. I'm still not ready. I'm still, every day I'm learning new things about artwork and comics in particular. Because it's something that I read and something that I like to look at. But dude, I never, not even for a second, did I ever look at the writer artist.
I try to explain that to people so many times because like I was the same way. Like we didn't grow up reading a lot of comic books because we just weren't spending money on comic books like that. Every now and then we'd get our hands on a book or so. And then I think one of my first comic books that I ever remember reading was a Transformers comic. And I read it because it came with a Transformers toy that I had. It was a Transformers Energon series back when I was a kid. And they had the comic with it. And that was kind of like really one of my biggest introductions to comics. And I tell people, I'm like, I did not care about the artist that was working on anything like that. Like I think I'd look at the cover like, oh man, this cover was cooler than some of the other ones. Like for me, I don't necessarily care for that hyper realistic comic book style. It's hard for me as in my ignorance for like art styles and all that kind of stuff when it comes to comics. Like I know I like a certain like era for comics, and like when I look at like the Uncanny X-Men and all that stuff, like the ones that were like way before I was born and all that stuff, and all those like more so pastel colors and all that. I'm like not really my style, but all the like modern stuff that's like hyper realistic and with where everybody wants to try to make it as real as possible. It's like not mine either. It's kind of that perfect blend in there. So I get it. There's so many artists that like I've communicated with now that I'm like, oh wait, you did that book that I enjoyed when I was younger, and it's like, oh, okay, cool. Now I can put a face behind that name. Did you have because I was about to ask you if you had anybody that inspired you or had.
That's the thing. I didn't know at the time, but now I do.
Yeah.
My dad bought me a mini series.
Okay.
It was like 4 comics in one. not in one, 4 individual comics in a box.
Okay.
Came, and it was Sabretooth. This was back in 1993. I think I was like 8.
Yeah, I wasn't born, so.
Yeah, and it was Sabretooth, and it was a red cover, and the cover where it said Tooth had the 2 holes cut out of it.
Oh, okay.
And when you open it up, there was this beautiful painting of Sabretooth like this, jumping, you know?
Yeah.
I was like, that's cool. Yeah. And I fell in love with the book. It was just great. And then there was another books that I saw at the store that I was like, okay, let me grab this, right? And it was a ghostwriter.
Okay.
And I didn't know at the time, but all the ones that I liked were all from this guy named Mark Texiera.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, okay, that's the guy that when I think of comics, because when you open up that page, he kicks him out of the limo and he's like, good luck. And he's like, what? And then as soon as he gets out, he's surrounded by ninjas jumping in a residential area. And there's this amazing Texiera style upshot of his legs spread wide and his he's like this, and all these ninjas are coming down. You know, it's just it's gorgeous. But everything's exaggerated over the top. And, but again, my what I like to draw is I like to draw things from when I was growing up. You know, when I my favorite cartoon growing up was Ren and Stimpy. Okay. That was like, that was so cool to me. I had never seen anything like that. You know, they was drawing farts, you know, a living fart, or he would, there was an episode called Fire Dogs where it introduced me for the very first time I saw it was called a gross up, where it was this big fat lady and she falls off of, or he rescues her and he's passed out because whatever, and she gives him CPR. And as Ren wakes up, he looks at her, and they do this close up of her. She looks grotesque, you know, spindly hair, and they have this sound effect in the back going, like the dog, and she looks terrible. And I'm like, oh, but that was the coolest thing I had never seen. And you know, when I was little, I mean, we had Thundercats and Ninja Turtles, and that was kind of my era. I came just a little bit after, like He-Man. Never saw He-Man, never watched G.I. Joe. Gotcha. That was a little bit too old, maybe like a year or two too old for me.
Okay. So you didn't even get into it later on?
Nah.
Gotcha.
No. And the haircut didn't help. But, you know, like, they're like, oh, yeah. It's like, no, Thundercats is cooler. You're stupid. But for me, like seeing those cool cartoons was great. Yeah. But it wasn't until like the Ren and Stimpy when I saw that, I was like, that's what I would pause the TV. Really? Put my paper on the TV and start tracing, you know?
Wow. Wow. That's funny. I didn't, for me, like growing up, those shows, like I was born in 94, right? So that's what you said. You were like watching the show in 93. I was like, man, I wasn't even born yet. But the 94, I remember like going back watching He-Man, not the original, but it was like He-Man, Masters of the Universe, and then like because everything that I was watching was kind of a continuation of the shows that were great, like in the early 90s, 80s, and all that kind of stuff. And it was like all of those things, and all of those things for me still have an impact on all the media that I see now. It's like I watched He-Man, I watched Power Rangers. I remember one of my early birthdays, I got a Zoid for my birthday. And it was this whole piece, and it taught me patience, really, because it was this mechanical Zoid where it was my first thing that I had ever had that I had to put together like bit by bit. And, you know, it's one of those like model kits, and we were sitting there putting it together, and it had a motor, and you flick the thing, and after you put this entire Zoid together, and you can see it, and you flick the switch, and it would start walking, and me and my brother would pose it, and I sit there and I started to draw it, and then my brother would come through and try to color it. It's too bad. Like he never knew that. It was one of those things. We never knew that you had different people that could get into like people that were like line artists, and then you had the colorist or whatever like that. My brother was one of the best colorists I've ever seen. Like he could take an image and make it like really, really bring it to life. And it was just a fun thing that he used to do when he was a kid.
Now I also have a brother, and I would never trust him to touch anything that I drew. Yes. But because you did, he probably was a very good colorist.
Yes, he was. Even when we were like growing up, like we were just about adults, we'd have coloring books in our room, and just like we just get coloring books like X-Men or Hulk or whatever like that, and he'd just have them just so that he could just practice coloring them and doing the whole design and all that kind of stuff. Then I tried my hand at like writing a story. So I would sit there and write things out, and then he would sit there and try to color it and color things that I drew and do that whole thing. It's too bad we never did anything with it. We kind of let time just kind of go by and let life just kind of pass us. But it's one of those things that I still think about that. Like me and my cousins, we still like, man, we still got this project. We're gonna, one of these days, we're gonna put it out. But yeah, so Ren and Stimpy was your inspiration, which I now, after looking at your artwork, I'm like, makes sense. Because I can see like with the, you have that project, but the Buckler, right?
The Buckler. Yeah.
The Buckler. Very, very much, I would say that art style, I can see in the animation, which that first off, you do your own animation for those projects?
Yes.
Those things, like hats off to you, man. Those things are a ton of, they're
a ton of work.
Yeah, ton of work, but they're a ton of fun. Those look great, but it reminds me of that time to get that. So you go into like looking at Ren and Stimpy and all that kind of stuff and that art style, tracing TVs and all that. How do you get to that point? Now you're watching the YouTube channel, Diversity in Comics, and you know, shout out to the kind of inspiring you to getting into what you're doing now. But how did that lead you to kind of where you are now?
Okay, so while I was watching Richard C. Meyer, he was saying on one of his live streams, "Oh, I got a buddy that is a comic pro that I'm trying to convince to do YouTube, and so that he can, you know, tell people about how to make comics and stuff."
Okay.
Right? And that was a guy named Ethan Van Sciver. Okay. So when he started his channel, I started watching him because, you know, send your audience that way, right?
Gotcha,
I was watching him, and he was doing, when he first started, he was doing a lot of late night tutorials and
I used
stuff
to
like
appreciate the content that he used to do.
And there was times where I was driving and I would go to get unloaded, and I would just sit there in just the middle of the night, right? And he would end up, he has like 5-6 people in his chat, and I would ask questions and stuff like that. And it was really cool. And when those two guys put out a crowdfunded book, and when that happened, everybody wanted to do a crowdfunding book, right? And so when they started doing that, I started getting hit up. And in the early days, in that time, because there's actually like a community surrounding the whole thing. And in those early days, there was a hollow void for artists.
I got you.
Like there was not a lot of artists. There was a lot of people with ideas and things they wanted to do.
Right.
Just based solely on who was watching, right? Because again, I was watching Diversity in Comics, and everybody in his chat was like, I have ideas. They're idea people. But no artists.
Right.
Or very little. So the people were asking me, hey, you want to work on a project together? Sure. So I started doing it. I was working. I had free time. Hadn't even had a kid yet. And I was like, let's do it. So I would get off of work and I'd work on a little of this or a little of that, or just help people out. And I met a guy named Rick Piper of Cross Comics. And talk about a guy who wears his heart on his sleeve, like the most genuine person. Terrible comic artist. Not an artist.
Gotcha.
But he was trying. He was trying to do artwork, you know? But he was, and again, an idea person. You know? And I met him on a YouTube show where we would draw characters, you know, in a timed session, like a competition. And I met him there and kind of just kept in contact with him and became very good friends with him. And that's when I kind of started seeing that people will pay for artists. I was like, okay, well, we'll see. And again, I was working driving trucks. And then after about a year of that, and people started like asking me continually, I was like, okay, I'm going to take 2 weeks off of work, take my vacation, but I'm not going to go on vacation. I'm just going to accept all of the commissions that people are asking me for. I'll just say yes to everything. And I started doing them. And I knocked them out, and it was pretty good. I made about maybe 1/3 of what I was making driving. I did that a couple of times over the next 2 years. And it got to the point where when I was taking my vacations, I was making more money now than when I was working. But again, how long will that last? Is that sustainable? When the work dries up, what do you do? Right. So I kept off for a while. Of course. But the backlog kept piling up. Sorry. And it got to the point where it was silly of me to go back to driving and spending hours and hours over there when I could do this, which to me did not feel like work at all. You know, it's just fun. and still is fun.
Yeah.
So I stopped doing that and started drawing full time.
Okay.
And doing that for a while, I mean, people seem to resonate with what I draw. Not everybody, but most people. And that's when I got tapped for a coloring job by Yellow Flash.
Okay.
And the YouTuber Yellow Flash.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, do you have anything that you've done yourself that you've colored? And I was like, well, all of these that I've shown you are all mine because I just do my own coloring.
Okay.
Like, oh, this is you.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. He's like, you want to work on a book with me? Absolutely. Yeah.
Gotcha.
That's an opportunity for me. Like, I know what I can raise in crowdfunding. I've done my own book, the Buckler. But, I know where my max influence limit is, and it's not great. So what sustains the bills, what pays the bills for me is working on other people's stuff.
I got you.
But I was like, okay, I can work on this guy's stuff. And that might be an opportunity for me to actually do, instead of doing good, doing well.
Yeah.
So when he came with that, I was like, okay, well, I'll do it, but I don't want it to be a gun for hire thing.
Okay.
So I want ownership, part ownership of this. So I was like, okay. So when we agreed on terms on that, I was like, okay, this is good. And that's what led us here. Now that the campaign is finally here,
yes,
and it's doing well right now, I believe it's what?
It's
70?
About 79% of the the
80,
initial goal, about 80% of it.
80,000, 80% right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got you. So what made you go for the, what was it about this particular project that made you decide, hey, I want to be, instead of a gun for hire, I want ownership in that? What made you kind of take that approach to it?
Because when he was telling me the idea, I started liking it.
Okay.
Right? And when I started kind of chewing on the idea and spitballing it, he was super receptive.
Gotcha.
And I was like, okay, well, I have more ideas.
Yeah.
But again, when you're a gun for hire, they don't, usually a writer knows what he wants.
Yeah.
And he wants you to do what he wants.
Exactly. Your input is appreciated, but maybe not taken into
that's
consideration.
Great. Keep that to yourself.
Yes, exactly. exactly.
But because he was so receptive and open to this, and I started chewing and I started churning, because when he told me the idea, it was like a mix between Power Rangers, Indiana Jones, World War II epics, Saving Private Ryan, and then meets Gundam. And I'm like, I got ideas. I really want to be a part of this. And also it would be great.
Yeah.
To have something other than the Buckler.
Right.
Just to, expand the resume a little bit.
100%.
And when he was talking about, because when I draw the Buckler, it's very gritty, very dark, very almost noir, but over exaggerated everything. And when he told me, I want basically like a Power Rangers, but I want it gritty.
Okay.
I was like, oh, okay.
Yes.
I can handle that. So let's do that. I want it. And thinking about it and on all the lore with this book, right? It takes place during World War II.
Yeah.
And it takes place back in the day. But how the character ties in to what is happening in kind of like in the back rooms, in the shadows of the upper echelon people in the war. Like there's so many different artifacts and relics and occult things that were tied into the World War II, that it writes itself almost. There's so many different things. You take a kernel of a story and you think about it and just chew on it for half a second. You start getting inspired, That's why I wanted to be a part of it ongoing.
I got you. I got you. Long term, you weren't thinking short term, kind of like instant type of thing. Long term. Nah, man. So for the people, can you give us kind of a rundown as the story of the Mighty Golden Patriot? Sure. I got it written out here. But I want your take on that and kind of the vision that you guys have for it. Okay,
so the Mighty Golden Patriot is about a group of soldiers, mainly one, but a group of soldiers that do kind of anti-terrorism. There's this, in the story itself, the Nazis have a department, I'm calling it the Shadow Reich, that go around, and their main job is to go and find rare and powerful objects from antiquity.
Okay.
And the people we follow, they are basically trying to stop them or usurp their endeavors, or outright destroy it.
Gotcha.
Right? We've made sure that these powerful relics stay out of the hands of the Nazis. They're not all American, but our main character is.
Gotcha.
And he comes across the relic that then attaches itself to him and gives him wondrous powers. And with these powers, he's able to stand a chance against the overwhelming forces he's against. Because again, this takes place, the book takes place in North Africa during the Rommel campaign.
Okay.
And there's almost no, at this point in time, American military presence in the area.
Okay.
So he's a pilot. He was in there doing reconnaissance and gets shot down, be very much behind enemy lines, thousands of miles behind any friendly.
Okay, got you. That's where they're saving Private Ryan.
Right.
I love it.
He's deep in it, and he's got to get the amulet that he has is what the U.S. government wants. We need to get that and bring it back. But because it's kind of attached itself to him, he needs to get himself back without getting taken. So the Nazi forces, the Shadow, and the main bad guy in the book are after him, and he has his own piece of it, the amulet. So he has similar powers, but he's much more practiced at using them.
Okay.
And how it works.
Gotcha.
And I'm not going to go too far into the lore of how it actually works, but it ties in a lot to have to do with like what's in your heart, like exactly how patriotic you are. And as you can imagine, the villain, the Nazi villain, is very much patriotic for his motherland. And he's very strong. And not only that, he's had it for some time. So he's very practiced with it and knows how to whip ass.
Gotcha.
So our character, Jack, has to get back. And that's kind of the setup to what's going to be an ongoing thing.
Okay. So, oh, man, that sounds so cool. So cool. I'm a big fan of like war movies and war stories and all that stuff. Anything that's set in World War II, I'm all the way in. Like, I absolutely love it. Now, one of the things that stuck out to me was your animated trailer that you put together for it, and with the mechs and all that stuff like that. I was like, I watched it just before you came in today. I was like, yeah, this is so sick. I absolutely love it. It's so for the people. You guys are publishing this through Represent, right?
Yes.
Gotcha. So how has that kind of process been for you when it comes to getting that distribution instead of deciding to kind of handling it and all that kind of stuff in-house? Because you did the Buckler in-house, right? You did that yourself.
I've done quite a few campaigns that I've been part of in-house. And the main difference is it's so much weight off your shoulders. Yeah. Like there was we did a milestone recently where we've now pre-ordered over 3,000 books. Yeah. Now, normally, if I'm doing my campaign for the Buckler, I have to keep track. Yeah. And I have to make thumbnails for YouTube videos. I have to do promo pictures where I take the thing. I write over 3,000 sold. And I put effects on it. I put a drop shadow behind it. I do all the... I just woke up one day, opened it, and it was done. Okay, well, that's great.
That's awesome.
Like it's the little things but all the little things are taken care of. Right. So all you have to worry about is just making the book.
I got you. And obviously, this is a continuing story, right? Yeah. So the Mighty Golden Patriot. This is book 1. Are we planning on just like keeping it as in this? You could tell me whether or not you're like, man, you kind of going into the stories that we're not ready to reveal yet. All right, I'll take that. But is this going to be like one, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Is this going to be the flagship storyline? And are we going to have spin-offs of this? Or what are we thinking where?
The thing is, it's an ongoing story, but it's a self-contained story. Okay. So, if you read it, it has an end. Right? Yeah. Okay. But, sorry. But the thing is, we want to have this campaign. Yeah. There's, I would say, probably in the neighborhood of about 4 to 5 books. Okay. To get this first major arc out of the way. Okay. This is a self-contained story, but it's also setting up the beginning of the arc to resolve. I can't get too far into it, but to resolve the situations with the amulets and all that.
Okay, gotcha.
But yeah, that's about as far as I can go.
I got you. All right, I'll take that as my answer. So with going about this project, especially now, instead of being a gun for hire for that and taking on a ownership role in that's going to come with its own bit of concerns and all that. That's going to be kind of new, especially when it's coming from a project like you did the Buckler by yourself.
Yes.
Right. But this one, you're a co-owner for this project. What kind of challenges have you dealt with that process for it? And I know when you have multiple people working on each project, you're not always going to see eye to eye exactly on everything. So everybody's going to have to do that. It's going to take something that kind of you got to get your ego out the way to kind of be able to work together for that. What kind of challenges did you deal with the process of before even launching this project?
Well, I had to like move back into like a supervisory role in an area that I'm not familiar or comfortable with.
Okay.
I didn't know about.
Yeah.
And that's one of the hardest things is to delegate work or communicate with people when they know more than you.
I got you. Makes sense. Yeah.
But it's like, yes, yeah, I get that you know more than me, but this is what I want.
Yeah.
And that was the hardest part because it's intimidating. I had the problem before, like when I was a warehouse supervisor, like being a supervisor over, the career guys that were in their late 40s. Yeah. And I'm like 25.
Yeah.
And I got to tell them.
Oh, man, it's always an awkward situation.
It's super awkward, But I mean, it's your stuff. It's your vision. And they may know better. And usually they do. So it's great to take advice and all that.
Yeah,
but
100%. You
got to do what you know to do and what you feel is right. And that's the hardest part. That was the hardest part for me.
I get it. Yeah. I can't think of any time I've ever been put in a situation where it's like, alrighty, you're the one that's responsible for this, where I was like, oh yeah, man, I got this, no problem. Every single time I'm like, alrighty. You always have that imposter syndrome where it's like, do you deserve to be in this position? Do you have the knowledge? Are you going to do it? Because like when you're taking on a project, it's like, okay, this is more so on you now. You're going to carry more of the weight.
Because the option just be like, hey, put that down. I'm doing it.
Yeah.
It's no longer there.
Right.
You don't have the time to do that, or you don't have the, so you just kind of have to trust and hope.
Yeah.
And that's hard for me. Like I loved when I became a truck driver because now it was back to all me again. I wasn't responsible for anybody or whatever they were doing.
Right.
I just had to do me. And I deal with the consequences if things go bad.
Exactly.
I love that. But that's different. It's different. But
yeah. So when it comes down to your now you got the book launched and everybody's excited about it and all that, and I keep up with the online stuff some. I've been using that mute and block button on Twitter like it's being worn out.
Nope.
Because I'm like, man, some people say some of the wildest things for that, and kind of I saw some of the speculations and different things like that. Even when it came to you guys launching the book, and everybody had their opinions and all that kind of stuff as to what they wanted to put in there, but you guys were like, all right, cool, you're gonna do your thing the way that you guys want to do it, and kind of getting past that. With this project, have you kind of encountered anything where you're like, it's already launched, where you're like, you know what, next project, I'm going to do this differently? Just kind of something that you've learned in launching this project so far.
Yeah. I would say next launch for the next book, volume 2 or book 2 or whatever, I would say I would want a bigger buildup to it. I think with this one, we started trickling teasers out too early.
I got you.
And I think there was some hype and then die down, and then more hype and then die down because it came in waves. We were working on it for a while. Because I was working on other stuff. I worked
100%,
but I think I would rather hold off on information.
Yeah,
until there's an opportunity, maybe a 2-week window. Start releasing piecemeal, and then building up to the actual release.
Yeah.
I think that would be different.
Yeah, I do. I agree with that. As a bystander, like I'm subscribed to your channel. I'm subscribed to Yellow Flash.
It's hard when you draw something.
Yeah, you want to
show somebody.
Exactly. And so like I'm seeing this stuff and I'm like, all right, cool. I'm ready for this book. And then I remember Yellow Flash was talking about like, oh man, it's going to be here soon. And then I'm like, all right, come on. And then time will keep going. And I'm like, man, come on, where's the book at?
Yeah.
To do that. So I, just like you said, experiencing that hype and then drop down and hype and drop down, man, the emotional pain that you guys put us through, it's not okay.
No.
I'm messing. So
sorry.
We won't hold it against you. So when it comes down to this project and kind of like you mentioned what you've learned and kind of like your approach to things, and you've had obviously inspirations from different artists and different, like you said, the Ren and Skimpy kind of influences and all that kind of stuff.
If you were asking me what my straight up main influences are, it was going to be Tech Sierra.
Okay. Yeah.
Tech Sierra, Sam Keith.
Okay.
And again, John Cristofalucci, the Ren and Stimpy creator, and Norman Rockwell.
Okay,
that's
got you.
Like to me, that's I love all of that. I love the Americana. You know, things need to look just so. Yeah. Now I kind of got into this when I was doing tattoos for a while, where I seem to be able, because of my talent, my drawing talent, right? I seem to be able, and I don't know if this is just my generation, but when I draw something, I feel that's how it's supposed to look. Okay. If I draw a log, even in the cartoony way, right? Yeah. Can you draw a log? Pictionary, for example. I draw a log. People will get it immediately. Okay. No matter what I'm doing. People will get it immediately because that's how a log's supposed to look. Gotcha. I'm doing a tattoo. I want this. You mean kind of like this? That's exactly what I mean. Yes. Okay. That was kind of that being able to put down on paper what people want to see, and that's how it's supposed to look. Right. I think is my biggest strong suit.
I got you.
You know, other than that, I mean, I need work on everything.
Right.
You can always work on your anatomy. You can always work on especially your perspective. And then depth and well, not depth, but atmospheric perspective, especially, and coloring. I need work on, but I love the fact that this community that I'm in is by and large just, again, full of fiercely genuine good people and like everybody you encounter wants to see you succeed. Yeah. And it's rare when you see somebody actively rooting for your downfall.
Right. Exactly. Do you think that if the independent comic book market, and this might be, I'm trying to figure out how I want to word this question for you, but I'm looking at the opportunity that you have now with Buckler and now with the Mighty Golden Patriot and all the commissions and everything like that you've done in the past, and finding the community and kind of getting involved in that. Do you think part of me wants to say, are you grateful that the comic industry kind of has gone the way that it is because it's giving you the opportunity to do this? Or do you believe that, or ever see in the future or a version of reality where you are going to end up working in comics either way it went, whether or not you had found, what is it? What is diversity in comics? What's his actual name? What is it?
Richard C. Myers.
Richard C. Myers, C. Myers videos, whatever like that. Do you think like the independent comics or whatever like that would have been something that you were going to be leading into in the future anyway?
I don't think so. Yeah. Like I don't, is that like a question about predeterminism? I don't know. But I don't believe, I mean, I'm happy the way things came out. Yeah. I really do love like sitting down and starting my day, going,
100%.
and then, I'll get a phone call. And it's my daughter, and she's like, "Hey, can you come in here for a second?" I just go from my work shed out into the house and see her whenever I feel like it.
Yeah.
I can take my 5-minute, 10-minute break anytime of the day. It's fantastic.
Yeah, you just get the work done.
I mean, as opposed to like when I was driving over the road and I'd be gone for 3 months and then home for 3 weeks and then back out for 3 months. This is way better. So much better. I love the way I don't know if it would have turned out this way either way. Probably not.
Gotcha. You don't believe you had a desire to do it.
I'm happy that it happened the way it happened.
Yeah. Have you seen the a change in? So I won't beat around the bush about it. So I am familiar with the independent comic book. I was introduced into the independent comic sphere by way of Eric July. And I found out about him because I walked out of a Marvel movie. What was that? Captain Marvel. And I was absolutely like depressed. I was like, what is going on here? And my cousin sends me a video and he's like, hey, you should check this out. Because me and him were talking and I was like, dude, that movie was such trash. It doesn't make any sense. Why in the world, like, how in the world do you go from Infinity War to Captain Marvel? This doesn't make any sense. And so we started having these conversations. And so he shows me this video of Eric July talking about Captain Marvel and talking about these different books and all that. So I go down this rabbit hole. So then I was like, all right, cool. And then, so I subscribed to his channel and I'm seeing him. And I remember kind of following up with them, listening to his podcast, For Canon's Sake. And I was like, all right, cool. So I remember I was in the grocery store and I'm listening to the podcast as I'm going, and he interviews some of the creators of X-Men, the animated series, which I've met and interviewed in person now too, which is awesome. And then he interviews EVS as well. And so I was like, all right, cool. Who's EVS? So the EVS, so I look up EVS and figure out it was like Human Sunbeam or whatever he called himself or whatever like that. And that introduced me to that kind of corner of the comic book, independent comic book sphere of that, which Comicsgate and all that kind of stuff. Since then, I've kind of like pushed myself away from that just because it's become something that I don't actually vibe with. They're just like those same characters. Like EVS is not the same EVS that I mentioned before, and John May is not the same. But I backed his book. I haven't read it yet because I'm like, I can't pick that up right now, just because of certain things that have gone on. But with I can't deny that the momentum and the energy that was introduced to, and what I've seen within the comics, independent comic sphere, just from from what I was exposed to. Obviously, it's bigger than what I thought it was, or what I know. But just from what I've known, it's impressive, and it's giving a lot. I think it's created something that is like I love when the market kind of like adjusts to things and kind of gets people in there. Are there any creators out there for you that where you're like, man, those books, like for me, Irene Strakowski, I freaking love her books, man. The Fiendish and all that. And then the dude that does I can't think of the name of the book. I think his name is Eric something. I get his emails
Eric Weathers?
Eric Weathers. What's his book called?
Battlebrick Road?
Yes.
Okay.
That book and all that. Those books, like a lot of those creators, like for independent and all that stuff, it's like I'm just like blown away. Then I interview Vaughn Coleman out there. Are there anybody that you're looking at like, man, had I not kind of pulled up this one video and kind of gone through this path in there, you would have never been exposed to these creators or anything. You're like, in awe. Or it's just kind of.
There's this guy, Nefarious. Again, we're talking about people that are online personas,
correct?
Right? So I'm not gonna actually know their real names.
Yeah.
It goes by the name Nefarious.
Okay.
They call him. He has a book out that I was very impressed with. Also, a guy named goes by the name Hojo.
Okay.
Has another book called The Mythicals. Impressed with that guy. Arvid has a book called Band of the Crow. Very impressed with that. I
saw that today. He just followed me on Instagram, on Twitter. He just followed me on Twitter, and saw that. It's
a good looking book.
Yes,
right?
I was like,
because it looks almost like Irene's.
Yes,
but it looks like a guy drew it. Because Irene's very much you can tell it's a girl drawing.
Yes,
but this guy Arvid has like a very similar style, but just masculine.
Right.
Like, I can vibe with this, but. Yeah, and the thing is, like all these people, like I've met some of them, talked to them, and some of them have good ideas and bad artists. Some of them have great artists. bad ideas. Some of them have a mixture, and it's all, varying.
Yeah.
And who am I to say what people are going to like? I don't know.
Right.
I think there are large women on YouTube, and people pay to listen to them eat. Not watch, just listen to them eat. I don't know what's going to be. I don't know what's popular. Who am I?
Yeah,
but I've met so many great people from that group, Comicsgate, right?
Yeah.
Like Rick Piper, and my friend Yucky, Marsupial Gamer. These are all like basically their gamer tags, right?
Gotcha.
Like they're online names. Again, mail-in too. But great people that have done, like in back rooms, have just been nothing but helpful.
Yeah.
I host like a off-air hangout. Like it's like a StreamYards or a Zoom call.
Okay.
But it's just a bunch of creators, and we just sit in the back, and we're usually silent.
Okay.
But we're just working on our stuff for the day.
I love those types of streams.
Right.
Drawing streams.
And I'll say, hey, Yucky. He's like, huh? What's up? I'll say, hey, look at this real quick. Let me share my screen, right? And I was like, what do you think about? And he's like a horror fan, right?
Okay.
Very knowledgeable about horror, how things are shot. He's made like films. He made like little, like not films, but short.
Okay.
Those trailers that are on those super grimy grindhouse sites. You know what I mean? Like, I think his trailer was called "Dear Mama, Don't Murder." But he's a big fan of horror, right? So anything that has to do with like, well, like, hey, Yucky, or hey, Marsupial, hey, and it'll get their attention. And having those people, and these people will go out of their way to just be helpful, to volunteer their time, volunteer their knowledge, which is valuable,
right?
But just volunteer it because they want you to succeed,
right?
And dude, every time like I sit and think about it, it floors me, like how much people are willing to just help other people out, and like that. This group of people that because again, I've been online for a while, for a couple of years now, but you whittle away the people that are kind of overall negative, overall leeches, overall this, and just get the people that give and take and just are genuine, real people, Americans. It's great. Just being there, it's a joy to go to work.
I get you, man.
And I can't deal with the online drama stuff.
Yeah.
Because when they went full drama, because they get now it's like full drama. Yeah. The Comicsgate sphere. And I think it started with the Trash Cast. Yeah. They started doing a show called Trash Cast, where it's like no longer about anything, just drama. And now I can't really, because when you make that leap to becoming a bread tuber instead of a YouTuber that does comic content, you can't really take anything they say at face value anymore. And I don't have the energy to like decipher. So I just ignore it.
Yeah, I get it.
But it's entertaining. I get that.
Yeah, somebody's entertained by it. I'm not, but it's what it is. There's a market for some of everything. Like you said, if they wanted to watch large women or listen to large women eat food, they want to listen to Trash Cast. Probably the same audience. It is what it is. Yeah. But now, when it comes to comics and everything, like you've been in the game now for some time, and obviously you've been a fan of it. What would you say is your favorite story that you go back to, and it's like from like legacy comics, not something that's new or anything like that, but something that's like established already?
Okay. Batman Secrets.
Batman Secrets. I'm not familiar with that one.
Is the artist. I don't know who the writer is on that.
Okay.
But I keep going back to that one because of like, I want to do, I get real heady, right? You sit with yourself by yourself for a long enough time. And you start to get wild ideas. They're stupid. Yeah. Well, what if I did this? Especially with the Golden Patriot stuff. The ideas start churning. Yeah. What if I have him grow in size and he fights him like a super megazord? Like, all right. Stupid stuff. I'm like, okay, let me get rid of that. But I go back to Batman Secrets, and there's a little part in that story that's just, it's on character, on brand, great. And it's a part where the Joker's telling Harley, I got out of prison, but we're going to set up Batman. So I'm going to need you to take this pipe and beat the hell out of me with it, right? And she's like, I don't want to do that, right? And so, but eventually she does. Yeah. And then he's like, geez, his tooth's missing. He's all beat up, right? And then he turns to her and goes, all right, your turn. And she's like, what? And I'm like, and it's just simple stuff like that. It's very on brand, on character, but it's shocking. But at the same time, it's fun. You know, it's just something. It doesn't have to be a whole new concept. Just something a little new. I'm
interested to see how that's illustrated. That seems like it's such an interesting sequence of panels right there. I'm trying to imagine that.
But that was great. But again, if I always buy the same books. Okay. As soon as they get ruined, because I have them on my drawing table and around. The 4 books, the 4 Sabretooth books that I have, that miniseries, they came out. If the pages start to fall out or whatever, I'll chuck them in. I'll buy a new set. I always have to have those with me.
I got you.
Those are my, just for looking at inspiration. I just constantly go back to those.
I feel it. I have my long box. Like I have one single long box. I have boxes of comics, but then like I have one single long box that has all my independent comics on there right now. Right now it's full of like Rippaverse comics and then like other stuff like Stranger Comics and like a bunch of different other independent creators and all that kind of stuff. I have those boxes, but I have I have one box that my dad gave me when I was like early teenager, and me, my brother, and my cousin, we were down at my dad's church, and we were doing some work on something else, and somebody came in. They was like, "Hey, we got a bunch of comics." I don't even know where they came from, but they just had this big box that had just a bunch of comics in there, and then they were like, "You guys can split this up for that." And now looking back, I'm like, "Wait, split up the comics?" So of course, as kids, our approach to that, how was it? It was, "Oh, you like this cover? Ooh, you like this one? You like this one?" That's how we were doing it. It wasn't until I was older where we were like, "Wait, that number on the right hand side of that, or whatever like that, where it says 1, 2, 3, or whatever like that. It's a story. That's where he got to go." Because when we were like, "All right, this is great," because I guess in our minds we were thinking that the book would be the full story from the beginning to the end. That's not the case at all. But it cracks me up because now I have those that I have now. My brother, he gave me, I have all of his books and all that. So I have a few of those stories where it's like almost everything together for that. But I was like, gosh, man. Then my cousin, he has all his stuff. The fun thing is, my wife brings it up, is like how she's always like, because I have a 1-year-old son, and she's always like, and so sometimes I take time and I read stories to like my daughter and my son now, right? I have a 5-year-old daughter as well. And so then I read it, and my daughter gets excited when I get boxes in the mail. Then I open them up and they're like comic books in there. She was like, "Oh, Dad, a comic book?" And so she comes over and she wants to read it with me and all that kind of stuff for it. And when it's a cool thing that it's like, hey, I appreciate the fact that I can share those moments with my kids. Do you share any of your stories with your, like, the kind of path with comics and everything like that with your kids?
No,
the kids are completely separated from it.
My comics are
your specific comics are not. That is true. Yeah. I was watching your trailer. It's like, nah, you can't have that. Sitting there with your daughter and doing all that. Like, hard no stop.
They do know the Buckler.
Okay.
They know the name. It looks like the Buckler. Right?
Yeah, but they're not reading it. How old are your kids?
My kids are 4 and 6.
Okay, yeah, definitely no.
Right.
Definitely no. But do you like any of those other stories that you have?
I don't visit those stories with them, but they do have their own stuff. They really enjoy the things, and I want them to enjoy what I don't want to really push my stuff on them.
I got you.
But they read Sailor Moon comics.
Okay, cool.
My older one, my older daughter, they had it on, I think, Amazon Prime, Sailor Moon, but it's all
digital.
It's all subtitled.
Okay.
So she had to read it, and that actually helped her become a very good reader because she was so into it. She kept pausing it and rewinding it because she couldn't read fast enough.
Gotcha.
And she was reading on the bottom. So she loves Sailor Moon. Which is great because I loved Sailor Moon too. And they like Ninja Turtles. I like Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
That was cool, you know. She doesn't like Power Rangers though. But if they right now really into Bluey, and Bluey has books, so they're really into the Bluey books.
Gotcha. My daughter got into One Piece for a minute, then I was like, we got to stop this now, because One Piece can go from cute to adult very quickly. Right. And so it's like, hey, Chopper's cool. And like, oh yeah. And my daughter would be like, I have a shirt with Luffy on there. And she'd be like, Straw Hat Luffy. And that was her thing. And then but then Robin and Nami came on the screen, and it's like, I can't.
Right. Hunter x Hunter for me is my jam.
Okay.
I love Hunter x Hunter.
I watched a few seasons of Hunter x Hunter. I never finished it.
I don't see how.
The judgment in your eyes.
Because my character is a villain.
Okay.
The Buckler is not an anti-hero. He's a villain.
Okay.
So I write villains. And what I really love about Hunter x Hunter is not the villains, but they took the villain archetype named Hisoka and they made him into basically the most compelling character on the show.
Okay.
And I really love to kind of break down and study how
it's been a few years since I watched that.
Hisoka is the
silver hair,
the clown guy.
Oh yeah, that dude's weird.
Yes,
that's weird.
Yeah. Evil weird to his core.
Yeah,
but extremely compelling on screen.
Kind of gives me that PDF vibe.
Oh, absolutely. They do that on purpose. Yeah. And but the thing is, he's not. Yeah. But dude, like you see him and it's so uncomfortable. He makes you uncomfortable watching it as he's doing his
mission
thing.
Accomplished.
Yes. Exactly. Like, dude, you couldn't be more schemed out by a person.
Yes.
Yet you can't take your eyes off him. Like when he's gone, he's missed.
I got you.
It's like, what is the show even doing? Where's Hisoka?
I feel it. Okay. I'm gonna pick the show back up. I'm gonna finish that one up. Like I said, I went through and I watched One Piece, and I got caught up as far as what Netflix had on the platform. But then it went like 487 to like 1,000. I was like, hold up, that's not how we count. There's a big gap in between there. So then they finally started uploading the rest of it. I was like, okay, I can do it. And I refuse to watch anything that is subtitled. I don't look at the TV enough to do that. And I know Yellow Flash and a bunch of other people on Flashcast would throw shade at me for making that statement. But I watch TV and I enjoy anime and all that when I'm doing something else. I don't have time to sit there and be like, you have my full undivided attention.
Right.
See, no, it's usually on the screen.
I'm saying just like you.
Yes.
I listen to what's I'll start to draw. I'll either put my headphones on and I'll play a YouTube video because I like watching conspiracy theories. That's my job. Or I'll listen to the Y-Files or some podcast or something. Okay. I'll listen to it unless they're talking about something really off the wall. I'll go, hold on a second. Let me pause this. Let me go open up the window so I can see what they're talking about. Right. Because normally I'm not looking. I'm looking at my screen and I'm drawing.
Exactly. That's just the way it works. That's how I've done that. I've watched, except for like, I hate to admit this because I get judged every time I say it, but I've watched movies like The Batman with Robert Pattinson's The Batman. The two Batman movies that I've seen the most are The Dark Knight and The Batman. I've seen The Dark Knight maybe 14 times. I've seen the Batman about 5 or 6 times. And I only watched The Batman so many times because I love the soundtrack or the sound design as well as the color grading for that. So I've watched breakdowns for the production of that film. Robert Pattinson's Batman, I'm not really big fan of that. I wish Ben Affleck was in that same role. If it was Ben Affleck, Ben Affleck is my favorite portrayal of Batman. I think he does the best job of taking what I grew up with, which was Batman the Animated Series, taking that and bringing that to life for me. Christian Bale was okay. I just didn't care for that crazy type of thing. Not my vibe. And then who's the other guy? Michael Keaton. I was such a kid that it was like in that whole world was kind of, he was just a different type of Batman. Like I've gone back and watched him and it's like, all right, it's great, did a good job of portraying him and all that, but there's like a bit of layer of cheese to that entire thing.
Yeah, I don't know how swayed I am by Kevin Conroy.
I got you.
And the animated series, because to me, again, because that was my...
Yeah.
I was born in 84.
I got you.
So I was a 90s kid. Okay, I grew up in the 90s. So I watched the animated series.
I like to mess with people that are like...
To me, that is Batman.
Yeah.
That is the quintessential Batman.
Right.
If you're doing something different than the animated series, you're doing Batman wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah?
Exactly.
Because to me, that's Batman.
Right.
What the hell do I know? Batman came out in 1983? But to me, if you don't sound like Kevin Conroy, you don't look like Bruce Wayne in the animated series, and your Batmobile doesn't look like that, you ain't Batman,
I love it.
But what do I know?
I get it. It's just one of those things where it's like, man, that's where I go with that. So I always like to ask, these kind of go through these kind of hot questions for people, just for when we're dealing, because this interview is going to come out in a few weeks, but we got a lot of things going on in media and all that kind of stuff right now that is like, hey, the comic book industry is very influential to pop culture and all that type of stuff. The entire MCU is based off of creative projects that were put together, just like what you and Flash, Yellow Flash, are doing now with that, right? Except for now, it looks a whole lot different, right? Even the MCU, from what we knew back then, is not the same MCU, or we knew some time ago, is not the same MCU now. Did you see the Ironheart trailer? Are you excited for that? I have not
seen the Ironheart trailer.
You're not excited for Ironheart?
I don't watch trailers from Marvel anymore. No, I'm going to be honest here. I couldn't be more appreciative of the 10 years of cinema that led up to Endgame.
Yeah. Probably
the best cinematic experience of my life.
I feel it.
Maybe second to Harry Potter.
Okay. I got you.
But amazing. Amazing. But I'm real quick to, realize when something is no longer for me and I cut ties and I move on.
I got you.
And it was, I think, Eternals. That I completely I was like,
I had COVID.
What am I even watching?
I had COVID when Eternals was on streaming, right? So I think they put it on Disney Plus, and I was laying in my bed and I was sick and I felt miserable. And so I was like, but I was woke. I was like, okay, what can I do in this time? Well, I'm already miserable. I can't be more miserable. So I watched exactly. So I watched Eternals because I was like, gosh, man, this is bad. It might be one of my. I have a hot take that some people really don't really like, but it is what it is. There's a few Marvel movies that prior to like Phase 4 or whatever like that, after Endgame, like after Guardians of the Galaxy 3, I think that was the last one that they put out that I was like, all right, that was pretty good. Which one came out first? Spider-Man No Way Home Guardians?
Which was a good movie. No Way Home was a good movie.
Yeah, those were the last two things that I really enjoyed.
What did you say was before that?
Which one?
No, the one you said you watched.
I watched Guardians of the Galaxy.
I still haven't seen 3.
Yeah, so I watched that one. But one of the things I always get backlash on is one of my most hated Marvel movies, MCU movies, period, is Thor Ragnarok. I hate that movie.
That is, to me, the pinnacle of the MCU.
Oh, yeah?
That's the best movie.
Okay, gotcha.
Probably, second best movie, Infinity War, Ragnarok.
Yeah, I think...
Why do you hate Ragnarok?
Because it is one of the most, from a storytelling perspective, it loses itself and becomes it's fine. Like, I watch the movie and when I do, I watch the first half of the movie, then I turn it off. Like, I turn it off the moment that he shows up on that planet that he's on. I always forget the name of it. Sakaar. Yeah, the moment that he shows up on Sakaar, I literally turn it off because that movie is good all the way until that point. And then the moment that he steps off of that, he did the spaceship thing, right? I'm trying to remember that movie. He got on this.
No, it was the Rainbow.
The portal. He did the portal thing, and then Valkyrie. That was the one that was like falling off of the spaceship and the walkway.
Hela knocks him out of the portal, and he ends up in.
Yeah. That's how that whole thing went. And it's just one of those movies where it's like first of all, it had way too many jokes and all that kind of stuff, because that's where they really ramp all that stuff in. And then it's like, okay, you sprinkled it in the beginning, and then you just went really heavy once it got to this point. And then for what was going on in the movie, it didn't feel the way that it should, in my opinion. Just do like what you do, in my opinion. But what do I know? I was just like, nah, man. I think every other movie felt like it was like, hey, you understand the gravity of this situation and all that. By the time it was at the end of the movie, I was like, are we laughing? Are we crying? What are we doing here? It is because
the way I saw it, I think, I'm pretty sure I'm right. Thor, all the people that have had problems with Ragnarok are big fans of the comic Thor. Comic Thor, in my opinion, does not make for good cinema.
I get what you're saying. I literally had the same conversation with somebody recently because they were like, the Thor that like what we got in Ragnarok, obviously that was a change from whatever everything
like if,
was.
If I were to think of a movie that would have been a good Thor movie, what was that movie with Antonio Banderas and the Vikings? Where he has to learn their language.
I don't think I'm familiar with that one.
I don't know, but it has to be some sort of an older period piece, some sort of Norse history where Thor makes his presence known then. I could see that working as a serious drama kind of dealio. I don't see Thor working in any iteration nowadays in the present time with his comic book persona. I think this is the reasonable result. And not only that, they did it so well. Thor is somebody who is not like you or I. He's not like Tony. He's not even like Captain Marvel. Right. Thor has been around for many years. Right. Thor has seen civilizations rise and fall. Thor topples governments on a Wednesday. You know, somebody doing something ain't that big of a deal to him. Yeah. I could see how he would be like, I mean, the part that people always say that they loved in the original first Thor movie that was boring as shit is when he smashes the plate and he says, another, or his beer mug. I was like, and that was one scene and that wasn't even that good. See, and that's what they remember out of that.
I understand the difference.
Abysmal movie, you know?
I understand our difference now because you are correct. I like the more comic accurate Thor and that tone. That's why when people say Thor Dark World was like one of the worst ones or whatever like that. And I was like, I recently went back and watched through just about the full MCU up to Endgame. And I was like, I actually really did appreciate that movie for what it was. To be honest, I even like, what was that Thor, the fourth one with the chick and
Love and Thunder.
Love and Thunder. I think that's a better movie than Ragnarok. And
wow.
because Ragnarok at least is
you're having a giggle, are you?
it was consistent. At least it was consistent. I don't care necessarily like your story and everything like that is good and all that good stuff, but be actually consistent. And once you've established a character and all that kind of stuff, be consistent with it. I was also not a big fan of like Loki, the show. The first season, at least. The second season was better.
To just real quick, to go to Thor, like the movie Ragnarok was like, to me, I'm not a big thinker. And I'm a popcorn moviegoer. Yeah. I love the lens flare. That's all me.
I got you. Michael Bay. All that. Yeah, I got you.
I thought Optimus coming out and changing was the coolest thing I'd ever seen in my whole life.
I recently went back and watched all of the Transformers movies, or just about all of them. I absolutely love a lot of aspects of those movies.
Did you see when Jetfire donated his parts?
Dude, and that was sick.
Yes, that was the baddest thing I ever saw in my life.
Yeah, there was moments in these movies where I was tearing up. And
that's
I was
what I'm
like,
saying.
Yo,
it's about those moments. The moments like in the comic book with Harley Quinn where he's like, all right, now your turn. Like the setup and the moment that's like, that's good. There were so many of them in Ragnarok.
Yes.
That's why I love it.
I get it. And I remember the trailers of Ragnarok where I was sitting in the theater, me and my wife, and there's this moment and you're in the arena and Thor is in the arena and he's like, oh yeah, here's our champion and all that. Then Hulk comes out and he's like, oh, it's a friend from work. I laughed at that point. But I didn't expect that movie to be what it was at that point, which made me not even appreciate that joke when it came because it was too much at that point. I could do with it, like sprinkle it in and all that kind of stuff. But like you said, not every movie is necessarily needed to be taken serious to that. I have a whole bunch of movies. I like the Pacific Rim movies. I like the Transformers movie. I thought the Meg 2, man, that movie was so refreshing and so much fun. I don't know if you've seen the Meg 2.
I've never seen the Meg 1.
Just do yourself a favor and watch Meg 1 and then go and watch Meg 2 and appreciate the insanity that the Meg 2 is. There's a point where it gets to that where you're just watching Jason Statham on a speedboat with a machine gun try to take out a giant shark and an octopus while these little dinosaur things are running around attacking people and all that. And it just becomes absolute insanity. Mm-hmm. But it was a ton of fun. And at the end of that, I went on Criticlist. Shout out Blaine from Criticlist. I went on Criticlist and I was like, this movie gets a top score for being entertaining, because I feel like so many times people lose the point of creating, which is to entertain. If your story has a lot of messages and all that kind of stuff in there, but it fails at the entertaining point, then you failed at your job. If Flash put out this book, if I read this book and it's all anti-Nazi or whatever like that, and going into like the details and all that kind of stuff about that, and it lacks on the entertainment point, I'm gonna hit you up and I'm gonna be like, yo, John, what's up with you, man?
I had to get this number.
Like,
who is this prank caller?
Like, what is going on? That was my issue with Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl performance. People like to talk about it meant this, it meant this. Forget all about that. Was it entertaining?
I'll be honest, I didn't even know who Kendrick Lamar was. I knew who he was just because of the Death Row halftime show.
Okay.
They brought it out. He's like, Kendrick Lamar. I was like, what is that? Right? But so now I know who Kendrick Lamar is. Yeah. Now he's getting his very own,
which I think was a mistake,
but okay. Show.
And people are like,
and I'm like, I don't even know. Like, I normally, because I'm not a big music person. Like, okay, I love music, but I'm not the kind of person that knows who sang it. Yeah. The name of the band member's name.
I get you. When you're a lot alike on that same thing.
So I'm like, okay, I know I barely do it for the life of me, the They Not Like Us.
Yeah.
I kind of
You understand the meme.
I kind of know that song. I think I've heard it once or twice before.
Okay.
That's all I knew about Kendrick Lamar. Like, and this guy's going to be doing an entire, dude, Michael Jackson ended racism in 1993 during the Super Bowl halftime show. Hit after hit after hit. They kept on coming. How many hits does this guy have to solo a halftime show?
Exactly. No, I agree with that 100%. I was like, he was good as a feature on there or having somebody else. Like,
Snoop could do a halftime show.
Correct. But I was like, he's not it. And some people are like, man, it was the most viewed one or whatever like that. It's like, just because views does not equal appreciation or acceptance or anything like that. With it doesn't mean that people liked it. It was one of the most viewed, but it was also the most divisive. One of the most divisive. I think Janet Jackson might have had a beat at
what?
Big.
Okay, I didn't even know what was going on.
But it was because
was it divisive?
It was divisive. It was divisive because people wanted to. People that coming out saying that they didn't like it, just like me, right? But I'm black, so I get to say that without the scrutiny that, like, if I was white, they had to say, "Hey, you're racist." And you don't understand it was supposed to be about the black thing and all that kind of stuff. True, 100%. But that was what people were dealing with at that with that. And so I was like, nah, bro, it's not that. I understand what the message and everything like that was, but forget all about that. You got to put on a performance that's going to entertain. And when so many people are coming out saying like, man, this ain't it. Now you got to have a bunch of people.
Agree.
Somebody
dude, like I hate Beyonce.
Oh, same here.
I like Halo. I like Halo.
Like, there's songs that I'm like, okay, that's a solid song, but man, I
like the song Halo. I hate Beyonce, but I can't say that girl slouches when she goes live on stage.
Oh no, she puts in the work. Yes, she puts in the work. I never want to see her, but every time I do, she puts in work.
I've seen people clowning on Fergie because she was on Good Morning in New York or something. Yeah. Doing backflips on the stage. I'm like, she's like, I can't believe she's doing all that at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm like,
what
she's
you gonna
putting
do?
On a show.
Exactly.
Dude. She's a
full
performer.
Sin. That's what you got to do all the way. That's how you approach everything in life. When we're putting together the show or doing anything, we're like, all right, we got to do it at its top. I've done a good amount of performances and all that. I remember I've almost fell off the stage at House of Blues doing the pin drop because my shoes were too slippery and I almost fell onto the lady in front of me just because it's like, hey, we're going to give it our all at everything. And that was just the way I grew up with it. But yeah, man, I'm a big fan of art and creativity and all that kind of stuff. And I think there is a place to tell stories and have messages and all that kind of stuff in it. But I think one of the lost arts is the ability to do it in a way that does not lose its integrity. I'll put it that way. When it's like, hey, you had a lot of stories, the X-Men and all these other ones all these like superhero stories and everything that we grew up watching or reading or listening to. All of these stories had morals to them. They would always talk about things about being a good person, or, the golden rule, treat others the way that you want to be treated, and all that, the right and wrong, the battle of right and wrong. And, it's something that is like, yeah, it's there. It's always going to be there. But your job in this is to entertain. And that's why
I think that stuff happens on accident. And I think that with hindsight, people put a lot of genius onto people that is not there. I think that if you're a genuine person and you do have a good heart, or not a good heart, everybody got their sins, but you're just overall you want what's true and right and good. In this world.
Yeah.
And you write a story, no matter what story it is, I think those things come out naturally.
I get it.
And I don't think,
because
but again, I'm not a genius writer. So I'm not an architect.
Yeah.
I'm an archaeologist, right? I find things and kernels and that's cool.
Yeah.
Like I was talking with one of the guys backstage, right? And he was telling me about one of his ideas. And then he's like, what if I did this? And I was like, hey, dude, that's good. Yeah. But that's how I come across good ideas. But I don't even know if there's that many, maybe a handful of people in the history of the world that can architect a story that has layers and morals and has multiple meanings.
That's why everybody is not everybody's not a Tolkien.
Yeah.
Right. But you have a bunch of different people where you have those stories where it's like, you did this on a masterful level. Whereas like you're going to find not too many people that are going to find flaws in Lord of the Rings, right? You're going to be like, man, even on the cinema level, most of the time people are like, yo, that's one of my favorite things to watch, because even the film adaptation of it, even though there were certain things that were changed to it, there's such a great appreciation for what it was and what it's become and everything like that. For a while, I say not saying what it's become, because Rings of Power is hot trash. And so
I haven't seen it.
Gosh, man, there's one of those shows where me and my wife, we were watching it, and then if we watched the first season, that second season came out, and we made it like 10 minutes into the first episode, and we were like, nah, they still want this nonsense. And we just turned it off. But it's so everybody does
like
it.
If you have that idea that's good, dude, you got to run with it. You got to full send it. Like, I mean, think about, like, realistically, I'm not too jazzed about anything Marvel's doing. I don't really care whose story they tap into.
Right.
Like, they've kind of burnt themselves with me with their quality since Endgame, that I'm just like, I'm sorry, but you're going to need like a string of good things before I start to go and take another look.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Because right now I'm just kind of looking over here, and until you start getting a rep of being good, I'm not even looking that way.
Yeah. And it's sad. It's sad.
It is sad.
Yeah.
Because again, that was some of the best stuff I've ever seen.
You'd always go back like,
you would never think when you were little, dude, that you would ever see the Avengers, the first Avengers on screen.
Dude, I was
amazing.
I lost my mind when you see Avengers assemble. And when that Avengers 1 and you get that pan shot where you get the Hulk, Iron Man, Hawkeye, and Black Widow with Captain America, they all come and land in the center. You got I'm like, dude, that was great.
It's amazing. Watching it, it's surreal.
Yeah.
All you can say is like, well, thanks. Yeah. That was great.
Now we have Ironheart coming out.
Yeah. Like, I know Ironheart, obviously, because I know something about comics, but I have not watched the trailer for that.
And then we got Fantastic Four.
I can't imagine it's going to be good.
And now we got Fantastic Four coming out. And Fantastic Four, and if you ask me, hey, which one are you going to go see? You're going to go see Fantastic Four, or you're going to go see Superman? You can only go see one.
Oh, I'm going to see Superman.
I'm going to go see Superman.
Yeah.
Like, even the trailer that they just dropped, I'm like, there's aspects of it where I'm concerned with, but overall, I'm going to enjoy this. I know more. Well, that's because I also have a bias, though.
Dude, I don't even care if there's aspects of it that are like incorrect. I only care if it's going to be good.
Yeah.
If like, okay, Now, if you change something fundamental, right?
Right, exactly.
Like Superman's actually from Mars. Like,
yeah. Man, get out of here with that. I'm a little bit biased. I'm a little bit biased though, because I'm not. If I go see Fantastic Four, that means I have to go see Pedro Pascal, and I don't like Pedro Pascal. So I'm like, that's enough for me to say no. Just throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm just like, nah, we out. We just do that. But
because that was the one I did. I only know Pascal from the Wonder Woman movie.
Yeah,
but
that was horrible.
And then my brother was telling me, you got to watch this show called The Mandalorian. And I'm like, okay, I'll give it a shot, whatever. I don't know. I know a lot about Star Wars just from osmosis.
I got you.
You know, from people talking about it all day, every day. Star Wars. I thought the movies are okay. Yeah, whatever.
Wait, which movies are we talking about? Like
they're all whatever. I can take it or leave it. I could live the rest of my life and not see it or know about Star Wars and it wouldn't affect me that much.
We got problems. I
don't know. It's like if somebody broke down on the side of the road, right?
Yeah.
Like
you just drive past.
Do I know them? No, I don't.
No, you did not just compare Star Wars.
You know,
somebody's broken down car. The disrespect must stop.
But I'm saying, I mean, I played Battlefront too.
Yeah.
You know, I ran with a grenade launcher. The Battle of the, what is it? Like, whatever, you know. But I'm not, you know, I don't live or die Star Wars.
Right. Me neither.
But I watched The Mandalorian. I enjoyed it. Until the guy at the end of, I think, season 2 or something, took off his helmet, and then with the dude from Gus Fring from Better Call Saul, the Pollos Hermanos guy.
Yeah.
He came in. And there was like this TIE fighter at the end, and then there was like a robot that was, we're good now. I was like, that's kind of lame, and I didn't. Yeah. That's where I kind of jumped off.
Giancarlo Esposito.
But the first few episodes where it was like Wild West, they were fighting some big monster in the desert, and they were like flying. That was so cool. It was cool
fire,
stuff.
Yeah.
But anything that has to do with that guy himself, I couldn't get it.
I don't understand why.
I was expecting him to be like a handsome guy, like. I was expecting, like, you know how everybody was disappointed? Well, I don't know this for a fact, but my mom tells me this.
Okay.
Everybody was disappointed when Darth Vader took his helmet off.
Oh, yeah?
Because of the James Earl Jones voice.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
The statue, they take it off with some fat old white guy. My son. You're like, what the fuck is that? I guess when Pedro Pascal was his face, I was like, I thought you were going to be like a Clint Eastwood looking guy or something. Something cool, you know?
Exactly.
Some fat guy with a chubby face looking all fucked up.
Negative as like I can't. My favorite thing that Pedro Pascal ever did was his role in Game of Thrones, and I really love his last few scenes.
Who was he in Game of Thrones?
He was this dude. This supposed to be this fighter. I forget what he was like. I think it was a prince or a king or whatever like that. He comes over, and he gets his head bashed in by this big giant warrior dude in Game of Thrones.
I know you're talking. Okay, yeah, I
remember that. Remember he got beat up by the mountain. Did you watch Game of Thrones? So you know the mountain.
I'm trying to I'm trying to recall because I was like, I've seen that show. Where was he? I don't remember.
Yeah, he was there. You know, the fruity dude that was going around doing all that. You know, but he I think he was a good
fighter, right?
He was a good fighter.
He won his first fight very effortlessly, but then he got caught by a very strong, powerful guy.
Yeah, exactly. Guy got his head bashed in. That's my favorite scene with Pedro Pascal ever. I can watch that scene over and over and over again, man. But man, so it's been great talking with you, John, but I don't want to take up too much of your time. So you guys have the Mighty Golden Patriot that is currently live on Ripperson, right?
Ripperson.
All right, man. Ripperson.com. So people, be sure to check that out. Before we close out, any advice you have for any creators, anybody that may, maybe kind of decided whether or not they want to take the leap of faith and put out their projects or anything like that, what would you tell somebody?
I'd say think about it.
Okay.
Think about it. Because the thing is, if you do this, you run the risk of falling in love with it.
Okay.
I'm like that. I'm like this with video games. Like, I got to stay away.
I got you.
Because if I play, I may end up calling in sick to work.
I got you.
So if you do this, be careful. Make sure you really like what you're doing.
Yeah.
Make sure you really, really want to do it, because you may end up falling in love with it, and it may not end up. It may end up a tragedy.
I got you.
You know,
fall in love with something. And
I've seen it happen to a couple of people in the community where they give up everything to pursue. It falls through, and then it's over.
Gotcha.
But the thing is, there's also success stories. So I make sure that you really, really want to.
I know you may think you're not qualified to give me this answer, and I only say that because of your previous statement where you're like, well, you don't know maybe what people like. Do you think you have an idea when you say something like you may fall in love with it, but it may not pan out for you? Do you have an idea as to what separates certain campaigns or certain ideas or makes certain things beneficial versus other things, and why, or not beneficial, successful, as far as other projects?
I mean, you see it. You see the pattern repeating in almost everything, especially with online communities. When somebody goes full bore, they usually have the best shot.
Okay.
Like if you see somebody that learns to love every aspect of what they do, they have the best shot at getting it done. Do you remember? Okay. The movie came out recently called Minecraft. Yeah. There was a guy, there was a cameo in the movie of a gamer that had passed away recently. Okay. And what was his name? Technoblade. Okay. Technoblade was the gamer. Gotcha. Technoblade would have been a success no matter what he did. Because this guy, from early in his career in Minecraft, he was farming potatoes. He turned it into the Great Potato War. He saw that there was a way to exploit the system where I am going to now harvest 45 million potatoes per hour cubically. Something, right? Yeah. And then he got into battles with people. He ended up in this big, epic, fight over this guy named Dream, and who was the best Minecrafter and all that. But everything he did, he would lose sleep. He would go full bore, full tilt, no matter what he was doing. And of course, he ended up being the best, right? So much so that they paid homage to him in film. You know, whatever. In other communities all over, I see people that when they go, the people that go full bore and full tilt always end up being number one. Gotcha. And succeeding. Gotcha. If you go full trash, you'll succeed. If you go full skill, you'll succeed. If you bide your time and weigh and measure, it usually doesn't work out. Okay. And so it's those risky arrangements or the riskier strategies for platform promotion or riskier whatever, those are the ones that usually either win big. And I don't see anybody else being weighed and measured making big strides. Okay. So it seems to be the pattern in everything, I got you. Yeah, man. That's great insight right there. That's great insight because you're correct. It's one of those things like we talked about full sitting. It's just going all the way in. And certain people have a certain mentality where it's like, man, you're going to see this through and make sure that it goes like to what I'm dedicated to this. I have this vision and I'm going to make it become this. You're going to put in the work. And then you have those people that may be a little bit more risk averse and kind of, tiptoe around it or whatever like that. And then, one of the things I love seeing is seeing a creator like that may have put something out. I was reading somebody's post earlier today. I don't even know how it ended up sort of showing up on my feed. It might we just may flow in the same circles or whatever. But somebody said they had put out a book and, they invested this much money into it. Then they said they made this much money back.
and it was lower than what they wanted, and basically than like what they were hoping. They made a profit on there, but they felt like they kind of lost. And they said, what was the issue? It was their marketing, and they took the creation of the project and all that kind of stuff very seriously. But the marketing and getting it out there to people and all that kind of stuff, that was the part where they fell down on. And not everybody that is a really good creator is a really good marketer.
Right.
And not everybody that's a really good marketer is really good at creation. And so you have to have that balance and all that stuff with it. And a lot of people don't realize you have that. Sometimes it's beneficial to have somebody that's better at the marketing to just come in.
Right. Like there's a guy, I know, I'm not a fan of him, but Malin.
Yeah.
If you listen to one of these guys, like when he's just like his working podcast or whatever, he's basically, he'll run down like, okay, we got this guy coming in on Saturday with this cover, and then we got this guy doing colors for this, and that's going to be about 4 weeks on that end right there. And he goes through this laundry list. Dude, my head is swimming at the end. I'm like, I could not in the life of me do that. I am not that like business acumen. You know what I mean? But there are people that, I mean, you're taking it seriously.
100%.
You're going to know more than anybody else.
100%.
You're going to sound like a super turbocharged nerd to somebody off the street because this is what you do, live and breathe every day.
Right.
And when you take it so seriously and you're that methodical with your stuff, that's when I see things panning out for people.
Exactly.
Like I know a guy he told me, learn to love the minutia. Name was Model 316. He was back in the same community a long time ago, though. He used to do a 3D modeling.
Okay.
And he would tell me, because again, back then.
Isn't that a car? The 316. Isn't that a car? I feel like that's
maybe Austin 316.
Maybe, I don't know. Sorry. My brain.
John 316.
Right?
But he would tell me, because back then he knew me before I started getting good at figuring out how to put these pictures on the page for comics and stuff. And he was like, I was kind of learning with him, and he was like, but he was already a professional. He was a professional model maker. He actually worked on movies like Titanic and stuff like that, like doing the modeling. Yeah. And he was like, you got to learn to love the minutia. If you find something that you don't enjoy, you need to fucking learn that thing front, back, and center. Yeah. Like that needs to be your jam. Like now you need to be, that's what you're good at by the time you're done. Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, and that I immediately in my head, I thought, well, that sucks. But dude, in all my life, there has been no better and more influential advice than learn to love the minutia.
I got you.
That right there was like game changer.
I feel it, man.
But in regards to your other question, I mean, if I knew how to be a success, I'd be one. But I see it happening. I just do I have what it takes? I don't know.
I got you.
Is the je ne sais quoi? Is it there? Who knows?
We'll see. Well, I wish you guys the best on your current project.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, man. I'm super excited for that. When I get that in my hands, man, it's going to be great. I got to figure out which cover I like that I want. Right now, I'm in the...
You're not going to dial me into picking a cover.
No.
Kelsey Shannon's cover is my favorite cover.
Well, was Kelsey the one that had the flag?
No, that was Rob Willis.
That one right now is in that's the one that I'm kind of like, man, I love that. But I also love Irene's cover as well. Okay. And I'm like, shoot, man.
Like for me, because I like the masculine. Like I like Rob Willis's cover is my second. It's good. But I saw it and immediately I realized, okay, that's going to be it. When we got the inks back for that, I was like, that's the campaign for the cover. That's the cover campaign right there. So that's the one. But then when we got Kelsey's back, I was like, oh man, that's good. I love
I'm trying to picture which one that was.
Kelsey Shannon's is the one where he's like this.
Oh, yeah.
In front of the tank.
Yes. Yeah. Dude, man, they're all
to
great.
To me, that's like pure Captain Ginyu. I loved it.
Captain Ginyu is great.
You have no idea. I have such dumb ideas for the Golden Patriot.
No, man, I got a poster. I'll show it to you.
I wanted the Lapis Lazuli Patriot, the Emerald Patriot. I want them all at the end of the book posing in the Guinea.
I'll show it to you on my wall. I have a bunch of posters from Billy Tucci, right? And so one of them is a Captain American poster, and he's standing there, and he got the the Constitution and all that written up behind him, and all that kind of stuff. It has a flag and all that stuff with it, and that poster. Who did you say did the one with the flag?
Kelsey Shannon.
Kelsey Shannon did the one with the flag?
No, Rob Willis.
Rob Willis, yeah. Rob Willis. It reminds me of that one. And I'm like, man, I absolutely love that. So much patriotism in that single shot.
It's like power, hope, patriotism. Like, and then Marcos Martin comes in with the coloring in the background. It makes it look like an actual battlefield.
Man, Marcos is a beast, man. Ever since I started seeing him do work with the Ripperverse and all that, I'm like, this guy, man. I'm like, hats off to you, man.
Yeah.
Well, with that being said, John, thank you for your time.
Thank you
so much, man. So be sure to back the Golden Patriot.
The Mighty
Golden Patriot. Yes, let's get that right. Back the Mighty Golden Patriot. Go to rippersin.com, man, and just check it out. It's going to be amazing. I'm looking forward to everything that you guys have planned up in the future, man. You guys have my full support. I'm excited for this as a fan. Oh, man, I can't contain it. But with that being said, thank you guys for joining me for another episode of the Icon Presents Podcast. Be sure to check out iconpresentspodcast.com for special announcements, behind the scenes looks and interviews and everything like that, services and all that. Yeah, a lot of people don't even know there's a whole service tab where we do headshots, web design, web management, and all that kind of stuff, promotional videos for people. So any of that resonates with any of you, be sure to check it out. Thank you again. Thank you, John. Y'all take care.